This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Fiscally responsible, financial geniuses, monetary magicians. These are things people say about drivers who switch their car insurance to Progressive and save hundreds. Visit Progressive.com to see if you could save. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary, not available in all states or situations.
Welcome to another Britflix.com podcast. My name's Stuart Wright, and today's guest is a musician from the band We Lost the Sea. Welcome to the show, Matt Harvey.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Now, we're going to discuss your new album, A Single Flower, and we're also going to be looking at 3 films that have impacted everything in your adult life. A choice and decisions that were very easy for you, weren't they, Matt?
No, incredibly difficult. It's the worst. It's the worst question. You know, I think I've even got written down in my phone. I think this was something that I learned from a work colleague, that they're like, you should just have this in your notes. So when someone asks you, you just pull it. And I'm like, but I should be able to recall that from my mind. And they said, well, no, because you want to change it because the context changes it. And you're like, oh, do I want to sound smart? Do I want to sound genuine? Do I want to say silly answers or silly films? That's kind of like, have your list in your phone. So when someone asks you that question at the pub, you pull it up and you go, well, here's my answers. Because they don't vary very much, but it is the worst question to ask. Yeah.
Indeed. Well, after me applying thumbscrews, Matt did give me 3 titles, and we'll get there in the end. But let us have a look then at A Single Flower, which sounds bizarre because we listen to albums, but I think now we're talking, we can get into it. Now, this is the first album in 5 years for you guys, isn't it? We Lost the Sea.
Yep.
And I was reading on your website for the release of it, your own description of what it is. It was written through a time where hope has been an afterthought. It is for people who can't face tomorrow but do so with stoic hearts. It is solidarity in dark places. It is in honor of finding love within the ruins. It is a celebration of beauty and art as resistance. And you hope that we find our single flower wherever it is. So in that sense, then, was the notion of single flower representing what you're saying there? Was that always at the core of this, or was that born out of making the record?
It's a big question. Sort of paraphrase my thoughts. This one came about sort of concurrently. I think the music started coming out like as it was, and then we sort of, people have their own inspirations and breakdowns of what they think things mean, and it's sort of. There's 2 of us that sort of drive the theme part. So the We Lost the Sea record happens in phases, and I think that the concept phase this time, it usually always happens. It wraps up after the recording has been done, and it wasn't any different this time. But I think that there's like it's its own little project after the music is done. So it's sort of retrofitting a little bit, but it's kind of using the music as an influence and a background to what we are feeling, and then we sort of try and translate that into some kind of words, theme, concept, poetry, whatever. Like, just for context, the Departure Songs was inspired by grief and tragedy at the time.
Yeah.
And then the idea from somebody, I can't remember who it was, sparked like maybe this whole album should be about, you know, people who have lost their lives for the greater good and champion the human spirit, I suppose. And then that sort of happened midway through. I can't remember, it's a long time ago, but it sort of latches on to the songs and us as we go. And then the more we think about it, the more we live in that space with the music that has already come out and already exists, it starts to bond together. And then we can't stop thinking about the music in those terms. So when we start talking about themes and they start to become more clear, people outside of just the two of us, Mark and I, who mostly come up with we spend a lot of time doggedly like researching and thinking and hitting brick walls and then coming up with something that means something.
Yeah.
I think like when we express that to the other guys, they can sort of relate to that because it carries through the music, and then they connect with those themes and they think about the music, and we all think about the music in terms of those themes, and it starts to make more sense. So yeah, it's a very like, it happens in parallel, but it's its own little project. And then I use that as inspiration to do the artwork that then joins everything together. So yeah, it's a huge process, and I can't do that until the music's done and recorded and finished, because I can't think about too many things at once. If I start, because there's always something to do musically, until that's wrapped up, I can't actually like, guilt-free sit down and go, I need to think about this, but I'm like, I've got all these guitar things to do and all this other shit to do. So it's a very like phase 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 kind of thing. Yeah.
Okay. And for the listener, the music is described as post-rock, post-metal, but also very much it's instrumental. So when you're dealing with concepts and things, it's very much in the mood. And given this is a film podcast, I would argue that what you're doing is very cinematic music. Certainly, like if they had hearts, the opening track. There's a real sense on that when I was just listening to it as a piece of music, not thinking about your themes, where I could hear the sort of the theme that you get in 28 Days Later, which obviously is a film about about much bigger things, but the music conveys the desperation and the horror of it. And I think it's a really interesting part, because I guess when you're talking to your band members, you haven't got lyrics to fall back on to go, hey, look, this is what it's about. Look, listen, chorus does this. You really are talking about moods, aren't you? Yeah.
Yeah, it is very cinematic. And I think that what we've kind of matured along those lines, accepted who we are and what we do, and it's sort of came. It's always difficult, but it came a little bit easier in terms of like the direction that we wanted to go. In terms of, we're going to write big cinematic music. It's going to be a classically Lost the Sea, really long thing. The themes are going to be really abstract, somewhat convoluted, but also too big for us and too big for our minds to hold on to. So we try and like wrestle that down into a palatable thing, but it's always in the back of our minds that we're writing a soundtrack to something. Yeah,
absolutely. And I think with the instrumental side of it, you're not like, what is it? You're not confined to like the usual sort of structures of a verse, chorus, and usually with a song, there's this idea of length. I mean, there are long songs, don't get me wrong, but by doing instrumental, you've kind of freed yourself in terms of how long a track has to be. I mean, there is a very short track with the gloaming, there is very long tracks with 27 minutes and 11 seconds and so forth. So within the whole album, you manage to build-ups that are intricate and complex and crescendos that are arresting and heart-wrenching. How do you? I mean, I always find this baffling to me when I hear music like this. Is how do you as a band know when you're done? How do you reach consensus on because there's so much flow going on? It's like you have to stop a song and stop the flow almost.
Yeah, it takes months and months and months. It takes years. Hopefully next time it doesn't take as long. There was a lot of shit in between this one.
Yeah.
Pandemics, lineup changes, like personal demons, I suppose. But that all adds to the alchemy that is whatever comes out. It's always a snapshot of 6 lives. I think this one was very much more collaborative. And so we work best when we're all in the room together. And then some magic will happen and we'll say, okay, that's something, let's revisit that or whatever. But the big, long journeyman songs, as we call them, they do take a long time. I think if you extrapolate out every single minute of the 27 minutes, you could probably attach some kind of like metric of weeks per minute of the song that it takes to make.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know, months maybe. But yeah, like the big ones. So there's a thing that we have in Willis to See. We say this often with people who ask the same question. It's the litmus test. The measure is if we've been banging away at this song and these ideas for ages, and sometimes it's a Wednesday or Thursday night and we're in the rehearsal room and we're tired and we're just like, all right, we've got 3/4 of this song. Let's work on it, and we'll literally break it down into micro bits, and we'll be like, okay, so that little thing there needs something else, or it's not transitioning properly, or we could spend a whole 3 hours just working on a tiny little bit. But then when we get to a point where we're like, should we just start playing the song in full? Let's see what it feels like. And because those songs are so long that it has to happen. They naturally happen in movements because the ebbs and flows, and to give it an overall sense of completion and resolution for the listener and for us, because we're also the listeners. It naturally gravitate towards things that are like, okay, so maybe we let this bit die out and let's just start another bit, kind of thing. And that's influences from other post-rock bands and stuff that we love, like Godspeed, Black Emperor, and stuff like that. That just it's movements. It's kind of like we're not all big classical music heads, but it's kind of in that vein where we have a theme and it resolutes and then becomes resolute, and then we start a new thing, and it's still in the same world. It's kind of like here's this space that we've given you to think in, and by the time we've reached the end, we've already forgotten how the beginning felt, but the whole thing becomes like an ecosystem. So it's when it's that big. So, but the test is if we we're all sitting there like this, and then the test is if people start to stand up one by one, and we're like, the big riffs will come, and we're just we're looking at each other, and here's the riff, and we're just like, all right, we're playing the riff, everyone seems to be into it, all right, we finish, and then a lot of the time, 90% of the time, we'll stop and be silent, and everyone's thinking about, could have been better, or I don't know what my bit's going to do, or, the bit's silent, it's good, or whatever, but you got to stop, and people go, that was sick, that's the thing, that's the bit, it's an electric feeling moment. We actually feel it. So, and if something after that much work makes you feel something, we go, well, that must be it. It has to. We've dug so deep that we've mined to the center of the core of the mountain, and we've found what we've been looking for. So,
no, well, I wrote down that I love the way that Bloom Murmuration at first light, where you tease us with what appears to be a really delicate song, and it's only for 45 seconds or so, and then you absolutely bury us under this beefier full band sound, and then just picking up your idea of movements as opposed to a song. You go back to the intricate, and it's a bit weird. I was thinking as you were saying all that, it's a bit like when you watch a film for the first time, and then you watch it for a second time, and you get to catch all them things that were just subliminal, were just subconsciously in your head. And you're like, oh, of course, that's where we had that clue for that thing. And then when you set it up and go back to the intricate, you trick us because we're going, we're expecting the big boom again. But instead, you build and you add. The band members come into the song and the intricate becomes part of the bigger song, where it was when it went boom. But it's almost like, and again, I was thinking it in movie terms. It's like a cold opening in a horror film. You've kind of gone, here it is. Now hold on to that thought. We're going somewhere else for a minute.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it's the more that you're talking about the film parallel, it makes more sense. We all love films. We all love storytelling. Like some people love novels, audiobooks. Others love film. Whatever, but I think there's something in part of all of us that we've become used to. I guess what I was saying before, we've accepted what we are, and I think we've sort of lived in that for long enough to be more comfortable with stringing these long things together, and we know that we're going to string our fans along with it because they're going to be with us because they know what to expect. We don't expect to be played on radio because the songs are 27 minutes long or whatever, but it's our fan base and I think they also appreciate the narrative, the storytelling. They can make up whatever they want to live in that. I put a lot of work into the booklet. I don't know if you've got the artwork in front of you.
No, sorry.
I've only recently added it to the Bandcamp. I'm going to do a big the PDF of the artwork. I mean, I'm going to do a big post on our website when I've got some time.
Okay.
I usually do this, like expand on the artwork, because it'll give people more of an understanding of what the record's about. And there's some really lovely writing in there from Mark. There's my artwork. It's much more of a sort of lamenting, poetic thing that we've put together, and it really joins the narrative together. So while we don't shoot film, I make the art and encourage people to sit there with the booklet open and listen to the album whilst, soaking up all of the stuff that's all the extra creativity, storytelling, narrative building that we've put into the artwork that gives you the context of what we're trying to say, I suppose.
But that's a callback to what long before internet and streaming was. That's what listening to music was about, wasn't it? The album was its statement, and everything that came with it. When you listened to it, then first few listens, you were poring over what you were trying to make sense of what it is, even if there was however little information or how much there was. Yeah. It was you're right.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Before we get into the album, one last question about the album. You've got where's me? You had a bit of a coup on the Gloaming to get Sophie Trudeau of Godspeed You Black Emperor to write, record, and mix the strings on it. How did that come about?
So the engineer and our friend that we became really good friends with by spending a week in the Australian bush recording an album with Greg Norman, who works at Electrical Audio in Chicago.
Okay.
We flew him out. He's worked with Godspeed a bunch and a bunch of other bands that we really like and love, Russian Circles to name one of them. We flew him out to Australia to record Triumph and Disaster, because we really wanted a different perspective, and he's much more of a what you see is what you get kind of like, in terms of what you hear is what you get kind of engineer, where it was much more of a raw experience and a really good one. But he put us in. Well, Mark went sniffing around, and he just had we had this piano idea, and Greg put us in touch with Sophie, and she smashed it out in like 24 hours. So
no fucking way. That was Jesus Christ, Matt.
Yeah. That makes it even more devastating, because it's so like, you fucking played that in like a day. Like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing. So you said like you need your head, things need to be sorted before you move your head into next parts of the creative process and that. So when the music is settled and you're all, what you've got, your song titles, that you've more or less got the tunes, and you move into developing the artwork for the album. What influences are you taking on board there? What for you is important for the creation of our album artwork?
Look, it's another mountain to climb. And at the start of the process, it's always confusing and daunting, and there's time pressure. I think this time we had we gave ourselves a long time to produce this record, which is good, because, like every hour I'm down in front of the computer, it's away from my son and my family and stuff like that. So it's kind of like, and I spent like 140 hours outside of work and family time to put that shit together over several months. So it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
So I think it was tough, because we were still coming up with the concept at the same time of me needing to do the artwork. So there's a lot of, I don't know, every creative will tell you this, you just turn the tap on and the mud will come out until it runs clear. So all the early stuff is just like, I've just got to get something down, just got to get it down. But like it's never like joyous influences. It's always like bleak, like dooming, damning kind of stuff. And it puts me in this headspace, but it's kind of like, so my first touch point was that when I was through my research, and one of like my favorite classic painters is Francisco Goya.
Okay.
And he went mad in his later years and locked himself in his house and painted his walls in his house these like bleak, like he was a classic like royalist portrait painter. And he had an incurable disease that made him go completely deaf, and he'd also been at the front of a bunch of wars and supported genocidal monarchs and stuff like that. And I think all of that got to him, and a lot of his paintings in his house that when he died, they removed from his house, and they have somewhere, they framed them, made prints of them or whatever. And it's called the Black Paintings, because he didn't have a title for them, and none of them were titled. And it was just this madman in his house, like fucking painting with all these oil paints and like breathing in all these fumes and probably going a little bit more crazy. And it's dooming. It's like damning war. It's very like, it's got this, I don't know, he's seen through the curtain and he's seen to the other side, and he's trying to paint these like pictures that he's disgusted with the world and everything, and it's so fucking intense.
Yeah.
But that was my first touch point, and I really liked, I was trying to ram that into the theme of how, and I don't know, it was one of those early ideas that while it was an early influence, it didn't sort of stick around too long towards the end. But it influenced me enough to like, right, I'm going to paint on black. I'm going to set up everything as black, white, and red.
Okay.
I want it to be bleak and stark and just, and yeah, and that was also a parameter that I set myself that was quite difficult to stick to, because when you limit your color palette, you take away a lot of your expression, because there's no shading, there's no like easy way out of being like, well, I'll just make this thing here with whatever I want. It's like, well, I can't do that. It either has to be negative space, or it has to be white, or it has to have a splash of red, but not too much red. All of that kind of stuff. So I'd have to cite him as one of the early influences. And the theme, the booklet, I'll have to send you the PDF so you can dig into it. Or like in the vinyl, it's got all the stuff printed in there. But we've associated, each song has a piece of art. It has a quote from an artist or an author or some kind of theorist, philosopher, something from the last 100 years that encapsulates what we're trying to say per song. And then also we've done a bunch of research on specific flowers and their history and etymology, I suppose, of how they relate, how the flower relates to each story that we're trying to tell. So, for example, A Dance with Death is, and also Mark listens to like 100 audiobooks a year, and he's like very into mid-century writers, Vonnegut, Cormac McCarthy, like all of that kind of stuff. So very heavily influenced by this like these big prose kind of writers. My angle was visual arts and sort of the film side of things. And we sort of crossed paths in some of the, Cormac McCarthy's All the Pretty Horses is where the line, a single flower comes from. It's part of this epiphany the character has right at the end.
Is it really?
But each song has a flower that we've done research that isn't, it's not like, the lotus flower means being reborn or any of that kind of namaste sort of stuff. It's more like this, the white rose is associated with A Dance with Death, because A Dance with Death is essentially based loosely upon the book by Kurt Vonnegut called Slaughterhouse-Five, which was written about the Dresden bombings.
Yeah.
And the theme behind that is like, when do the good guys become the bad guys, and when do you have to ask yourself, like, when are you doing this devastating thing for the greater good, or is it just adding to the pile of misery that has already been created? And the White Rose was representative of the White Rose movement, which was a youth movement against the Nazis, and a lot of these were students, and a lot of them were executed. Anyway, the White Rose has this specific meaning attached to the Dresden bombings, the books about it, the quotes about it, and then there's a little bit of like poetry prose that we write ourselves that sort of asks a question. So that's why this theme is super convoluted and the most like conceptually abstract I've had to do. So I've sort of drew a lot from the influences that we've put inside the book, and that's just one of the examples. Blood will have blood is a quote from Macbeth, and it's like he understands that he has to pay for his crimes in his own blood, and that song is specifically about the genocide in Gaza. And the poppy is something that grows native in Palestine, and children pick it, and it's an unofficial flower. The other one is the iris, the one that goes with the gloaming. So we've associated all these flowers with these things. So it's gone, and we've tied it into this. Basically, the single flower is a transaction that you get to see this beauty, but at what cost?
It's no wonder your album took 5 years to make. There's a lot going on. You haven't just knocked this out. You haven't just gone in and bashed this out, have you? I mean, this is quite an amazing insight into.
It is. And when there's a part in Blood that I play, and it's real janky, kind of like big doomy kind of thing. And for me, that is like the bombs, that is the destruction, that is the death, that is the children dying. And when I play it live, and I played it on tour live, I just want to smash my guitar that I will never smash because I love it. So, but just metaphorically, I will smash it in my mind. But it's just that's just an insight into the emotion that goes into making those individual bits and overall songs. That then it tells a story that we literally try and tell in the book of the booklet, but also physically and artistically as musicians try and like inject. Well, this for me. The other guys didn't know this. I told them that while I was on tour, and it kind of came to me while I was playing. I was like, this is the part in the song of the story that we're trying to tell, that this means this to me. And when I play it, I play it with this like immediate, like intense emotion about that thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's all wrapped up. Yes, and it takes fucking forever to do.
No, but it's almost like I can, when I come off this recording, I'll be I'll be able to listen to it with fresh ears again. Like I'll be sort of, which is
I'll email you the PDF because you'll really appreciate listening to it. I like the fact that people have listened to it without that, and gone into it blind, and everyone can take whatever they want from it. We've created these little cinematic spaces for you to play your own films in your head.
Yeah.
But yeah. I'll send it to you, and you can dig into that, and
That's very kind. That's very
expand the story that we're trying to tell. Yeah.
Right then, sir. You have been very generous there, sharing some of the processes and thoughts and ideas that went into making a single flower. We're now going to get into the easy bit now. 3 films that have impacted everything in your adult life. The rules are simple. You've given me 3 song titles. I will announce them, and I will be setting a timer off, and we will be going for 5 minutes. And every time we hear this sound, that denotes that 5 minutes are up. Does that sound like what you've signed up for?
Sure.
Say it like you mean it.
No, I'm keen. Let's go. All right.
Right then. First off the rank is 2015's return to Australian dystopia, Mad Max Fury Road. So tell us, where'd you see this, first of all? And
oh, man. Anyone who knows me will laugh because they're like, this. Yeah, I will just bang on about this movie. I at one point I said that I refuse to. I rate every other big blockbuster out of 10 Fury Roads. So if you get a 10 out of 10 Fury Roads, it must be Fury Road that you're watching. Otherwise, everything else is like less than 10 out of 10 Fury Roads. I don't know. I love big blockbusters as much as the next person, but it's not my like go-to thing. I remember seeing it at the cinema, and the opening scene, there's this bit where Max is just standing on the cliffside or whatever. He gets in the car, and then the engines just come over the top of the screen like that, and then from that it's just on, right? But it's an Australian film. I had to shout an Australian film. I saw George Miller and his writing team and his art director speak about this at at the Opera House during the graphic festival we have in Sydney.
Yeah.
And they have filmmakers and artists and all sorts of people talk about their art. And it was fascinating because not everyone, loads of people threw it, sort of shunned it as like this just dumb driving movie that goes one way through the desert and then goes backwards through the desert. And I'm like, yeah, it is. It's that. But then when George Miller talked about it and the fact that he'd spent over 20 years working on this specific film, and the amount of research that went into it, and the parallels that they drew, they even went to like the Dead Sea Scrolls for some reason, like the war boys are these religious fanatics that worship engines, and the black thumbs with the oil, and it is this cult and this world that is like deeply cultish, religious. They talk about Valhalla, and he said that he was stepping on the road in London at one point, and he said he stepped on the road, and this epiphany occurred to me. He said, well, why can't I pin all of these disparate ideas and all of these like really big concepts onto a simple plot driver of them driving one way and getting chased, and then driving back to rebel against the ruling, party, the people or whatever, the baddies. And he said that's the simple way that I can then, all of these little story arcs can happen, and just the way that it looked, the Cirque du Soleil performers that they had, it was all just done. Most of it was just done in camera, and they built the vehicles. Some of them have they collected badges of cars for years and made all these little details that you'll never see. And I don't know, it just has this otherworldly kind of. I love post-apocalyptic stuff, and it's big in Darwin. George Miller has this kind of like somewhat tongue-in-cheek somewhere along the line that you kind of go, oh, that's a really cool film, funny thing to do. You've made this guy blow up and spin in the air, and you didn't have to do that, but you've done that. But it's just, I think that it encapsulates everything that people should love about going to the movies. And I think that it has this amazing, it's this world that is like his own, and he's like is so deeply invested in it that I will defend that till the day that I die as being like a masterpiece of filmmaking. So yeah, I just love that film.
I wouldn't disagree with you that it's a masterpiece and the fact is it had such big shoes to fill. If we ignore Beyond Thunderdome,
right?
Mad Max.
Let's ignore Thunderdome. Yeah.
Mad Max 2.
I like Thunderdome, but yeah, I get you.
No, I mean, I saw the pictures. I snuck in underage to go see that movie, but it isn't Mad Max 2. I mean, Mad Max 2 is
Mad Max 2 is the classic. Yeah, absolutely.
So with that, the idea that he could trade on the nostalgia for that movie, plus the fact that he's been working this out, like you say, for 20 years, and come up with something. Because if I think of like a blockbuster comparison, Star Wars and The Force Awakens just literally felt like Star Wars pumped up a bit. Whereas Fury Road took Mad Max 2 and went somewhere. It is weirdly, I think, having listened to what you talked about with your music and the way the way it has. Oh, there's our first 5 minutes. I'll finish my thought. The way you talk about the moods and stuff. I mean, you're right. The plot isn't complex in Fury Road at all, but it doesn't stop you feeling exhilarated when you're watching it, and it doesn't stop you from caring that they get past the next bunch of Cirque du Soleil sort of elements. I just think for me visually, I'll just be real quick, just to tie it into the visual aesthetic thing, which kind of runs through a little bit of these films as a theme, is that some of the landscape shots, it's just like, I want to paint that. I want to print that and put it on my wall. The colors, the way that it just, I don't know, it has this, and he's made the Australian outback the character in itself, to be fair, it wasn't shot in the Australian. They wanted to shoot it in South Australia, but South Australia had enormous amounts of rain and there was flooding or something, so they had to go to like Namibia or something like that. Wow. They had to fly everybody over to Africa or something. But he wanted to shoot it in South Australia, but he couldn't. So, but yeah, I don't know. Just aesthetically, there's just, and it's just that opening scene is just amazing. But yeah, also the history.
Charlize Theron and Tom Hardy fucking hated each other, which added to the tension between the two characters, which I think always like makes it. And Tom Hardy's just grunting his way through the whole movie, and I don't know, like, yeah, it's a brilliant film. Yeah.
Right then, for your second choice, we are going to 1971 for a movie that in little old UK was banned by Stanley Kubrick. You weren't allowed to watch it because for some reason, out of all of the world, the UK ended up having Drew copyists see this film as an instruction manual. And so,
right.
So Stanley Kubrick's best response was to ban it. And it wasn't till after he passed that we were able to see it legally. I mean, there's this, if you watch, if you watch the documentary about the Scala Cinema, as late as 92, people were being fined for showing A Clockwork Orange. It was illegal. I mean, we live in weird times. We lived in weird times here. So, but for you, tell us, how did A Clockwork Orange look? A dystopian view of Great Britain over in Australia. Why did it have impact on you? And what was it? What memories does it conjure?
It was. I mean, this was an important film for a young film lover like myself in high school, university era, when I started to really heavily, pretend that I was a film buff, but really still have 1,000 films to see before I can probably claim that title. But I think I read the book, or I tried to read the book. It's written in Droog speak.
Yeah,
so
it's a difficult read, isn't it?
It's a difficult read, yeah, which I love, and I think I should probably go back to it now as an older adult, and kind of. I think also, I had Kubrick was immediately in this list, and I just didn't know which one to choose.
Okay.
I cycled through The Shining and Full Metal Jacket, as they're very highly up there, but I think this one. I think that it's so iconic. I think that, and the music. I think the decor of what's the cafe they go to, and they drink the milk out of the mannequin and stuff that, and it's just like this. I don't know. Dystopia is a thing. I love it. I think actually these three films all are sort of dystopia in a way. I don't know. I just think it's so visually striking. His filmmaking is unique and iconic. I love the color palettes. I love the long shots, and just like the scenes that would stay with me forever, like the Ludovico technique. And it becomes this like question of what is how far does an authoritarian rule go? Brainwashing was acceptable to rid this troubled youth of his violence or whatever, and obviously went too far the other way. When they pull up to that guy's house in the rain, they come in and they devastate his house and brutalize the people inside. It's just like that's just sticks with you. It's so like full on, and it's I don't know. I just think it's such a powerful piece of work that I just like. I'm just cycling through it all in my mind now. I just love every shot. The record store, like it's just what's his name? The main guy,
Malcolm McDowell, the actor.
Yeah. Just like as a young kid, I don't know. And also it's got that Kubrick sense of humor, that dark sense of humor. But it was really impactful for me as a kid. Like getting into proper cinema, and just everything about it was.
Do you remember how you came? Do you remember how you came across it? Then was this something you just got from the shelf, or was this peer group? Was this what?
It would have been. I can't remember. I think that. I mean, I would have seen a Kubrick film, and then I would have been like, right, I need to see all these films. A friend of mine, way back in the day at university, I used to go around to his place. We'd smoke up a little bit, and then we just put on films after films after films after films. So it was definitely in a pile of VHS films in someone's university house that we all used to go around to for sure. So yeah, I just wanted to like do all of Kubrick's work. So yeah.
No. You're not the first to want to do a director's whole. Oh, there's our 5 minutes. I was just going to add. It was 2000 when the ban was lifted on Clockwork Orange in the UK. So we weren't allowed to watch it in our homes until after 2000, which is.
No, I mean, maybe I didn't watch it until it says was not seen in UK cinemas again until after Kubrick's death in 1999.
Yeah.
I wonder if it was banned in Australia and I saw it after then. I thought I saw it. I would have been late teens.
But it was
banned in Australia.
Oh, was it? Okay, that's interesting.
Okay, so hang on. Yeah. Well, I mean, this is the AI overview in Google. I don't know how much you can trust that, but it says directed by, it was banned in Australia due to its graphic content, particularly concerning sexual violence. Fair enough. Refused to classify the film in 2003, leading to its ban. While the book was not banned, the film faced censorship issues. Man, we had that film. I don't know how. It was around. People had it. So, yeah.
Right then, sir. Let us move on to your final choice. A groundbreaking film in many, many ways. A film that I think for the Academy, when it won the Academy Award, was literally two fingers to the current President Trump. I think that it was the first foreign movie to win the Oscar for Best Picture, I think.
It was,
I'm talking about Bong Joon-ho's film Parasite from 2019. Yep. So that's a relatively recent film. So why did that film have such an impact on you? And
it's tough because I guess this one I could have easily put something like, I don't know, The Never-Ending Story or something that my granddad gave to me, but I didn't want to be like sentimental, even though that film was really dark and impactful in my life.
The horse
from my childhood life. That movie was so dark.
Yeah.
So the nothing. Like fuck. And the poor horse that drowned in the mud and all that kind of stuff. But look, it was more on a theme of what films have I seen that lasted with me a long, long time after I walked out of the cinema? And this was the first one that came to mind. Everything about this, I loved everything about this film. I loved its social commentary. I loved its overt social commentary. I don't care that it wasn't subtle. I also like its weird, and the photography in it is just beautiful. Like everything is so well crafted. Everything about it, the performances and it gets under your skin. The main character, when he's driving, they start to infiltrate the rich family. And I just love that. And then things start to go south. But it's the smell of their clothes, because they're poor and they wash it with a specific type of detergent or hand soap or whatever it is, that gives their clothes this musty, like cheap smell.
Yeah.
And it keeps coming up. And these little hints of just like, I think it was the first of a possibly not the first, but like I think it was the most popular and possibly the dam breaker that influenced a bunch of this kind of, I call it eat the rich genre. I call it like the anti-rich films that came out. Triangle of Sadness comes to mind. I can't think off the top of my head. There's a bunch of modern films that have come out. Like, it's not a new thing, but I feel like it, and especially after 2020 and the pandemic, and then the subsequent change in administrations around the world, I think that it really captured a feeling of people being downtrodden for too long, and it just like everybody is awful in this film. Like, you've got the anti-heroes, but everybody is awful, and it's this real, and it's also a really interesting insight from a Westerner to see inside of like Korean society, where it was a really big eye opener, and the way that he approached that and made it really approachable for Westerners to see inside these two different types of lives, and they're like, this is like, we have rich and poor everywhere. And I just think that I like the dark humor, a way of delivering the, you know, anti I guess, like it's this disgusting nature of money that basically makes everyone a parasite. There you go. I tied it up into that. I loved that, and because I just love that. That's like, you know, it's the billionaires versus the rest of us, and we've got all these people that are bootlicking the billionaires, thinking that they're going to save the world, but really they're just building rockets to space so they can, you know, jerk each other off or whatever. So I just think that something like this that does it so surreptitious, so not maybe surreptitiously, it does it kind of obviously, but it's so classy, and it's a masterpiece of a film. And I just like, I've watched it several times. It just leaves me feeling. Right at the end, and there's a party happening, and then there's the guy in the bush, and it just all goes gonzo, and then like everybody's dead kind of thing. And it's just like, I just love that. And it's just, everybody's awful, and he's stuck in the basement, and he's flicking that light, and it just, all these little, I don't know, the storytelling is just amazing. But yeah, it's such a modern masterpiece for sure. Yeah, it got rated. I told my wife this, and she's like, oh, do you know, it made New York Times as #1 out of the most influential films of the century or some shit, I think.
Okay, well, that makes sense. I could see that we had 3 seconds as you finished that thought, so the alarm has gone off. We are done with 3 films that have impacted everything in your adult life. Well done, sir.
Thank you. That was fun.
Yeah, I mean, I think what Parasite did was in some senses, was basically tell, you're right, we all have rich and poor, and the fact that it was a Korean tale about the rich and the poor, it still felt universal. It didn't feel like you were watching a foreign ideas or foreign traditions or foreign values. It was like, yeah, there are the put upon, and there are the people that are almost like anesthetized to people being put upon. And everybody else is there for them to service, because magically they have the money that means they don't have to get their hands dirty, for want of a better word.
Yeah.
And even literally the way that it's like the poor people live literally sub-basement, so when it rains it floods. And when we go to the other house, we're literally going up to the rich person's house. So it's like, you know.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And I'm like, that's obvious, that's so overt, but I love that. There's a scene where they're running away right at the end where they all get found out. They're like hiding under the coffee table.
Yeah.
I love that scene. So the whole family's basically under the coffee. And then they run away, and there's this cross-section shot where they're running down these staircases, and they're literally running back down to the poor section. They're running away to be back to where they're meant to be. Do you know what I mean? Like they're forced back down into their cave, into their hovel. And it's just this... Yeah, the class, the analysis of the class structure that is, as you said, is a global thing, is a universal thing. It's done so well. I love it.
Well, look, sir, we've reached the end of the podcast. Thank you for giving us such a great insight into A Single Flower, and all the big ideas that I've got caught up with and followed it through to the end. And thank you for sharing 3 films that have impacted everything in your adult life.
Oh, thanks very much.
It just gives me to say thank you very much for giving us your time on the podcast.
Yeah, cheers. Thank you very much. That was fun.
Do remember to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, follow on Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcasts for more movies that impacted your life. And if you want to, I'd love to know what your favourite movies are, what your fondest movie memories are. So please share your favourite movies that impacted your life on Twitter. Look for @LeightonRocks. And you can always leave me a review, 5-star preferably. And in your review, tell us which 3 films impacted your life. Best ones get read out on the podcast.
Hey there, it's Hugh from Poderation here. If you like today's show, why not have a listen to The Ramble? Ridiculous, irreverent, and sometimes maybe just a little bit raunchy. The Ramble is what you get when you put two professionally funny people in a room together and give them license to talk about anything they want underneath the umbrella of nerdy hobbies. We think you'll love it, and if you want to check it out, go to our website at podration.com.